Hello there. Okay, so I just watched episode 3 of Obi-Wan Kenobi and I'm still taking it all in. It's a lot to process. Obviously, spoiler warning, don't watch this if you haven't seen the episode. So right off the bat, I just want to get the main negative out of the way, which is the planet that most of this episode takes place on. Mapuzo, I think the planet is. It seemed like the film crew just went out into the California wilderness and just filmed something there. And that just kind of made it feel a little bit low budget. At least, well, in that aspect of the show, it felt like a little bit too real world to be a Star Wars planet. That being said, I did like that it was like a desolate environment that was supposed to be something that was more lush before, but now that the Empire has mined it so much, it's lost its more lush environment that it used to have. That was a great like story detail. Still, it felt kind of weird, almost made it feel a little bit like a fan film in a way. But I also have to think that like, okay, technically the Star Wars galaxy is huge. There's a big variety of planets, and some of those planets are gonna happen to look like just like the California American Southwest wilderness. And it's probably a bit weirder to me because I live in the Southwest of America, not in California, in New Mexico. I see similar types of environments every day. So anyways, all of that aside, I really think I enjoyed almost everything else in the episode. The Grand Inquisitor, we still haven't heard anything about him. I don't want to judge that right now because I'm sure that by the end of this series, we'll find out that he's not dead. All right, I have the episode pulled up in front of me. I'm kind of gonna like click through different parts of it just because like I did not expect to get this much Vader already. I thought that was going to be saved for like the last few episodes, and I didn't expect Vader and Obi-Wan to fight already. And I don't know, just all that, it's making it so much for my brain to process right now that I need some sort of reference to go back and remember all the different things that actually happened in the episode. Okay, so we start with Obi-Wan meditating on the ship, trying to communicate with Qui-Gon again, but he can't yet. I like that he still can't speak to Qui-Gon. I think the show is going to show that he has to undergo some sort of growth as a character, as a Jedi, spiritually through the Force before he's able to communicate with his old master. And then right off the bat, we get some Darth Vader, which, leading off of the end of the last episode, does make sense that we see a bit of Vader now. I didn't think we'd see as much as we see later in the episode, but we see him getting put together on Mustafar, which was quite cool. In the shot where the helmet is going down on him, it's very easy to tell that it's Hayden Christensen, where, just with that brief shot at the end of the previous episode, I mean, his face is covered in a mask. And it was a little bit harder to see Hayden in there. You could still kind of tell. But anyways, yeah, he's in his castle on Mustafar, and he contacts the third sister, which I think builds into her motivation more strongly that she wants to please Vader. Also, I wouldn't be surprised if Vader knows that the Grand Inquisitor is alive, but he's keeping that information from the other Inquisitors to like test them against each other, you know? And I think just the level of attention to detail of canon in this episode indicates to me that there's no way that they're going to just leave the Grand Inquisitor dead at the end of this or not acknowledge it in some way, because we got Vader's castle on Mustafar, we got Fortress Inquisitorius from Jedi Fallen Order, a video game. We got mention of Quinlan Vos surviving, which previously was something only known in the comics. There are so many canon connections in this that it's obvious that the creators of this show are paying attention to what is canon and what they can and can't do. So I'm just saying, like, don't be worried about the Grand Inquisitor thing. I'm sure that by the end of this series, we'll hear something more about it. Just be patient. Be patient. It's early in the morning. This time I didn't stay up though. I woke up to watch it. Oh, also, Vader's voice is credited as James Earl Jones, but I don't think it was his like physical voice. I don't think his actual vocal cords vibrated in order to make the Vader voice in this show. And that's simply because in Rogue One, you can definitely tell that James Earl Jones, he's aged. His voice doesn't sound like it used to. And here his voice didn't sound aged. I think it sounded a lot more appropriate for Vader, so I'm guessing they're probably using the same sort of deep fake technology that they did for Mark Hamill in the Book of Boba Fett, and I thought the voice sounded great. If it was fake, I couldn't really tell, and I think the fact that it's a mechanical voice that has these filters over it would hide it better if it is, so yeah, and if not, if maybe I'm somehow wrong and it was current James Earl Jones doing that voice and I'm just hearing things wrong, I don't know. One of the best things in this episode is how we can already see it is giving us a new context through which to look at the original trilogy, and Obi-Wan has some great conversations with Leia, and the one where they're riding in the back of that transport and they have to make up this story to these stormtroopers about who they are, which by the way was a great scene and was a little bit funny, but more tense than that because they have to hide their identities. But it brings up Leia's real mother, and I like that she's smart and that obviously she already knows, as we saw in the first episode, that the Organas are not her real parents, and she realizes that Obi-Wan knew her real parents and asks about Obi-Wan's parents. And I loved hearing Obi-Wan just talk about like the faint memories of when he was a child before he was brought to the Jedi Order, of what he knows of his family. And I feel like that kind of works to patch up the plot hole in Return of the Jedi of Leia remembering Padme even though she was literally just a baby. I think somehow after this conversation with Obi-Wan, Leia's able to make the connection that she saw her mother shortly after she was born, which in the real world makes no sense, but considering that she's Force sensitive, I think you can kind of make more sense of it in the Star Wars universe than you could before this, which I think is great. And once again, everything with Leia and Obi-Wan, just how they do their characters, is really just perfect to me. I love seeing this story with them, and I like that this series is much more character focused than action focused. We do get some action, but even like the fight scene with Vader, it's not a big over the top showcase of fancy choreography, which I'm assuming we'll probably get another fight between them later in the show that will be a bit more epic and fighty in the first place. But yeah, I just love that the focus in this show is on character. The reason why Obi-Wan and Vader at the end of this episode don't have a big over-the-top fancy fight is because Obi-Wan is so conflicted. It's been years since they've seen each other. There's a lot of heavy emotions between the two of them. Obi-Wan is scared of Vader. He's scared of what he's done and his guilt that brought Anakin to this point. Of course, Anakin chose to do what he did, but Obi-Wan wasn't perfect, and I'm sure he feels that he messed up. And one of the ways that he messed up was by not finishing the job and actually killing him when he had the chance, because I guess he just assumed that Anakin burned to death. Which, by the way, how brutal is it that Vader wants to burn Obi-Wan just to put him through what he put him through? Like, oh my god, that was brutal. Vader, absolutely menacing and terrifying in this. By the way, I love the shot of his helmet and the reflection of the flames. That was great. And also, like, this has me wondering now, so Obi-Wan's arm, like his whole shoulder, gets burned. I wonder if that's going to come into play to be some new context as to why in A New Hope he isn't able to fight super well, is because he has this injury on his arm that we didn't know about. I don't know. That's we'll have to wait and see how much his injury gets healed, but even if that isn't some sort of new context for the A New Hope fight, it was just a fantastic, brutal scene between these characters. I know I jumped ahead a lot there, but okay, something that I liked about Mapuzo, even though the actual environment of the planet was a little bit off-putting to me, I did like the big wide shots that just showed how like desolate it is and all that. That was great. It's just, I don't know, something about the actual look of it felt too much like something I see every day, and when I picture the Star Wars universe, it's something more fantastical and alien in a way. But I mean, that being said, Star Wars has had, obviously, real-world environments in it forever since it started. This is just a real-world environment that I'm more familiar with where I live. Fortress Inquisitorius looked great. I briefly mentioned it already. I'm kind of shocked at how far the violence is going in this series so far. We've had more like dismemberment than in most of the previous Disney Star Wars movies and series. Someone gets chopped in half when they fall on a laser gate. Then obviously there's the Obi-Wan's arm burning. But yeah, I loved all the tension with the stormtroopers trying to figure out who they are, and then once they are actually fighting them, I like seeing Obi-Wan fight without a lightsaber with a gun. I think it just represents how different his character is right now because of what he's been through, and also the fact that he would be so uncivilized to act like he's laying down that gun and then shoot the trooper who has Leia. It's very un-Jedi-like of him, but it shows who he is right now in his life, and he's struggling with these things, with his past and all that. And then we meet, actually, I forgot her name. I believe Indira Varma is the actor, but we meet a former Imperial. I guess she's I think still an Imperial, but she works undercover to help Jedi and Force sensitives find new lives with new identities, which was very clearly inspired by the Underground Railroad. We even get an underground-looking passageway, and the Holocaust and people who would protect Jews, which I think is great. Star Wars has always had some sort of like real-world influence for its various wars and stuff, and yeah, I think it was a really great sort of new thing to see in the Star Wars universe that I don't think we've gotten before, is someone who like helps Jedi during this time like escape and find new lives. I am very curious to know what all of the writing on the walls in that room were. I'm sure people are gonna go frame by frame, translate the Arabesh, and hopefully there's some neat Easter eggs in there. One of which wasn't really an Easter egg because Obi-Wan straight up said it, but Quinlan Vos went through there and he's helping this, which is great. For like the longest time we've wondered where Quinlan Vos is and what he's doing. And also I love that the show referenced a character who's not even in the main movies. Technically, there's one line that references him in Revenge of the Sith, and technically, he's very briefly in The Phantom Menace in the background, but you don't really know who Quinlan, in fact, they don't say the name Quinlan in the actual movies. You don't really know who he is unless you've seen The Clone Wars or read Dark Disciple. And knowing that he's still alive helping with this movement, I think is just really great, and it also in a way brings a little bit of redemption to him after all of the spoilers for Dark Disciple, kind of. After all the bad things he did in Dark Disciple, which I was left feeling a little uneasy about him by the end of that book. So just really great like world building in this as well. World building and character are like the focus of the show, and I'm so happy that they are. There's also this droid, Ned, I think it was Ned B, who is with this Imperial woman who is secretly helping Jedi and Force sensitives, and he's very interesting so far. I don't know if he can talk. I have a feeling like maybe he can, and he's choosing not to. But man, the amount of like silent, why am I not finding the right word right now? Intimidation, I guess, or like menace almost. Like not in an evil way, but just the fact that you see that this droid is holding like this hammer behind its back, ready to fight these stormtroopers, even though he doesn't end up using it. I love that aspect to his character. I think he'll probably show up again and we'll probably see him fight, but yeah, this silent droid is secretly like a badass maybe or something. Okay, so I absolutely wasn't expecting Vader and Obi-Wan to have an interaction this early in the series, and it makes me wonder even more where things are going. I think we've seen literally every single thing from the trailers now. So the rest of the series, we are blind, we are in the dark, and I love that. The way that, wow, Vader is, he's so menacing with how he just starts killing random people in order to draw Obi-Wan out. And they really made him frightening in this show. He's toying with Obi-Wan. I feel like even though he's wearing a mask, you can feel so much like emotion in him that's bottled up, and this anger that wants to get out of like what this person did to him. And their actual fight, although I did like the aspects of the fight that I previously mentioned, the fact that they were fighting around some like desert mining thing that looked very real world was like a little bit off-putting, and I just wish the visuals were a bit more fantastical and unlike specifically where I live in the real world, which once again, that might be a little bit more of a me problem, and me not seeing the Star Wars universe as something that could be so vast that yes, a location similar to the one that I live in exists in Star Wars, but it just, yeah, it did feel a little weird. Hopefully on rewatches that will kind of fade. But I'm really glad that they're holding back on the action for now. They're not going too over the top yet. And I don't know if we'll get anything as crazy as the Revenge of the Sith Mustafar duel. I think it might be possible because there's been a lot of talk of all the choreography practice that Ewan and Hayden have been doing for this. But I kind of hope that we don't. Or at least don't get something as intense as Mustafar. I think a lot of fans would probably disagree with me these days, but I just think the Mustafar fight was taken a little bit too over the top. It was extremely long and really focused more on the spectacle than the actual conflicts between the characters. So I'm not saying it's bad to have a cool fight scene or anything. I'm just saying that if you have a cool fight scene, I still want the focus to be on the conflict between the characters and not the spectacle. So Indira Varma's character is convinced by Leia to go back and help Obi-Wan while Leia continues forward. I love how persuasive she is as a 10-year-old girl, by the way. So Imperial woman, who I forgot her name, helps Obi-Wan. It was a little bit weird how shooting one trooper and then shooting something that exploded and lighted that flammable whatever on fire again. It was a little weird that that was enough to get Obi-Wan away from Vader. I'm not sure how I feel about that. That was like a little bit weird to me, not gonna lie. But I guess Obi-Wan is safe from Vader, although the episode ends soon after this, so we're not entirely sure how the next one is going to pick up. But meanwhile, Reva finds the hideout and goes through the tunnel and somehow gets ahead of Leia and kills the guy that they were supposed to meet, and now she has Leia. So it seems to me that Leia is going to stay in the show as a main character. I wasn't totally sure after episode 2. Like, yes, it would make sense because of how much screen time she was getting, but I just didn't know if Obi-Wan's journey was going to move past the rescuing Leia thing. But no, it still seems he's going to have to rescue Leia. And it's fascinating because if she's captured by the Inquisitors, I mean, surely they can't figure out that she's Force sensitive, and obviously not that she's Anakin's child, because then nothing in the original trilogy would make any sense. But nevertheless, I guess Reva and now Vader will still use her as a way to bring Obi-Wan to them. Although I wonder if there's going to be something else in play here, where Reva has some sort of new intention or way to use Leia, because she's out for herself, and if she simply brings Leia to Vader and leads Obi-Wan directly to Vader, then it's like she didn't play as big of a role and maybe she's less deserving of a promotion. So I think since she's out for herself, she's probably going to scheme in her own way and maybe not tell Vader and the other Inquisitors that she has Leia, or do something for her own benefit that will, in the long run, actually hinder the workings of the Empire to catch Obi-Wan. But hey, that's just me speculating. I think it would be interesting for her as a character. Oh, also, one other random thing that I forgot to mention. Very earlier on, when Obi-Wan and Leia are like first on Mapuzo, Obi-Wan looks over into the distance and he has a vision of young Anakin just standing there, and it's just sort of like his old memories like taunting him, and that was just like a really great little moment, and it makes me wonder if we're going to see a little bit more of young Anakin at some point, and I'm not sure, but I think it's very likely that we will get more of the Order 66 scene from the beginning because I think one of those younglings is Reva, and my theory is that she saw Anakin in the Jedi Temple, and that's how she knows that he's Darth Vader, because in the books and comics and other canon material, it is not widely known to the Empire that Vader is Anakin Skywalker. Like, the only people who know are Palpatine and the people who are able to put it together and figure it out, such as Tarkin, and I'm pretty sure the Grand Inquisitor also figures it out, and he knows that Vader is Anakin, but he probably wouldn't want to share that information. So I think Reva knows Vader is Anakin because she saw him in the Jedi Temple massacre, and I don't know how they will explain how she wasn't killed by him unless she right there just chooses to pledge herself to Vader in order to not be killed with the other younglings. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know if we'll get any significant Anakin and Obi-Wan flashbacks. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where the series is going from here. And I guess that's a good spot to end this episode review on. I'm just so excited to see more of this series. There's a few shortcomings here and there. Some of the CG environments have looked a little bit fake, especially in the first episode to me, some of Alderaan and some of the wide shots of Tatooine. And then in this episode, a little bit of Mustafar looked kind of fake to me. I think it was specifically the shot of Vader in his castle. Like when he's sitting down and then when he stands up. I'm looking at it right now. Yes, something about it does not look quite real. I wonder how much of that is a real set and how much is CGI. And then, obviously, like I've said, Mapuzo is a little too real world looking for me, although that might be more of a me problem and not really a Star Wars problem. The Grand Inquisitor was a little goofy, I thought. But yeah, other than like a few things here and there, I don't have much criticism for this show so far. I really like what it's doing, where it's going. Like I said before, it feels like reading a book because it's so focused on character and world building and slowly building up tension and action. So yeah, I can't wait for the second half of the series. It's kind of great that we got in the first half in such a short amount of time, and now the second half is gonna take 3 more weeks, and it's going to be a hard wait. But yep, bye guys. May the Force be with you.